On the other side of the Atlantic in the United Kingdom, it's recognized that this is waste that the country simply cannot afford in a world that's running out of food. So in the English county of Bedfordshire, a groundbreaking new service has begun. Here, residents are asked to keep their food waste separate from their general rubbish. It's collected weekly and taken to this anaerobic digester. There it gets shredded, liquefied, and then goes through a process of fermentation and pasteurization, which produces excess energy that goes back into the national grid, and most importantly, ends up as fertilizer for the farm. Waste food is ultimately helping to produce more food. Lisa Burton and her family have been taking part.
We've been putting our food waste into our brown bin for about 6 months now. Probably fill up about a bag a week or so, roughly, because we're not so bad at throwing away, but if we've got bread, then it'll be 2 bags a week, which is quite a lot, and then it does seem like we're wasting food. Notice that I'm not buying so much in the supermarkets now and not throwing away so much, because you notice the wastage and you realise how much is going out in the bin every week, because it's going into a brown bin as opposed to just going away bit by bit.
John Ibbott is the farmer who came up with the idea to set up the anaerobic digester on his land.
This plant takes 12 million litres of pig slurry. It takes an additional 30,000 tonnes of all sorts of different food waste. We produce enough electricity to supply around 1,700 households, and we replace about 300 tonnes of nitrogen fertiliser, which is about 1,750 acres worth of fertiliser that would be normally applied to the fields. At the moment, we have a problem with waste. The landfills are all filling up, and we need to make better use of that resource. This does turn rubbish into a genuine, useful resource. It's green all the way around. It's a perfect circle.
This farm can grow 6,000 tonnes of grain on the land that has been fertilised using the 30,000 tonnes of waste food that goes into the plant every year. In a world where food is an increasingly valuable resource, this technology is one way to create more food from the waste we can't seem to avoid producing. And there are even more radical solutions that scientists are exploring. Who knows whether meat grown in laboratories, so-called victimless meat, will ever catch on or be cost-efficient to produce? Or whether the new wave of enormous humidity and temperature-controlled greenhouses growing year-round vegetables will fulfill their promise of being food production at its most advanced, intensive, and efficient. In the US, Professor Dixon Despommier believes his multi-story vertical farms could not only grow everything we need, but do it in the urban areas where most people live.
The idea of a vertical farm is quite simple, actually. It means simply to take existing greenhouses and instead of making them flat and spread out all over the place, stack them on top of each other and turn them into a building, maybe 5, 10, or 15 stories tall. An outdoor farm of 10 acres of tomatoes is equivalent to 1 indoor acre of tomatoes, because there are no crop failures due to weather events, and you can grow them year-round. So that means you can actually feed as many people with a single acre indoors as you can with 10 acres of outdoor land. Vertical farming doesn't necessarily mean just plants, because we don't eat just plants. We eat various animals too. It's possible to connect plants to animals indoors in separate facilities but connected together, so that I can now have an ecosystem in a building. And I think in 10 years from now, this idea, although crude at the moment, will be refined enough so that almost every city that you go to will have a project on vertical farming.
Despommiers' vertical farm is still only a computer graphic, but the different farming technologies that could make it a reality already exist. In the UK, a project linking fish and plant production is already underway. It's called aquaponics, and Charlie Price is the man behind it.
Aquaponics is the integration of aquaculture, or growing fish, with hydroponics, which is growing plants without soil in water. In an aquaponic system, effectively, waste products from fish provide a nutrient source for plants, and plants act as a filter for the fish. Then we take the offcuts of the plants, produce worms in wormeries to feed the fish, so it's a constant recirculating loop.
This is what you could call a virtuous cycle, and it uses surprisingly little water.
The water that's here stays here and gets recirculated through the system. Any small losses that we have through evaporation will get topped up through rainwater harvesting. So aquaponics provides a really good solution for areas where water scarcity is an issue.
This is an example of sustainable food production in action. But the big question is whether aquaponics could ever provide food on the scale we need.
Aquaponics fits very well with localized food production. Its main limitation is that it doesn't scale up to meet with the commercial outputs of, say, Dutch glasshouse technologies, where vast ranges of monoculture crops are coming out and being exported throughout the world.
This is a test site for the aquaponic system, with the hope that it could be replicated in communities worldwide. Here, the tilapia, known as the aquatic chicken due to its wide appeal, and salad produced as part of the system, seem to be going down well.
Where aquaponics really fits is through the production of a diverse range of crops locally. We like to produce all the crops that we need on one site, so it fits very well with having an aquaponics system in every school, town, village across the country.
Aquaponics may not be the solution to a global food crisis, but perhaps that's the whole point. We might have to look at a variety of answers in the years to come. The world's farming land will increasingly be seen as a limited resource, and farming techniques will continue to develop. And science, whether in the form of genetic modification of crops or in novel ways to produce food near the people who will be consuming it. Whatever solutions the world finds to make food supplies more secure, the one certainty is that food will continue to be an increasingly scarce resource, and the issue will not be going away.